Well, I just want to welcome everyone here. I am Renee Jones, and I am the chair of Parents for Educational Freedom of North Carolina. For those of you who have been keeping up with the latest updates in education reform, you may have noticed that many states have taken starring roles on the stage of parental school choice. States such as Illinois, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Utah, Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, and even our nation's capital. These states have turned the tide of the unequal education status quo that says that one size or one type of education fits all. Instead, these states have created avenues of education freedom and equality for all children. This Tuesday night, March 6, 2007, another star state has taken its place on stage with the rest. Yes. This star script doesn't read too much differently than those of the other stars, in that we believe that parents should have more educational freedom for their children because they know what the needs of those children are. So tonight, March 6, 2007, Parents for Educational Freedom of North Carolina would like to say, welcome, North Carolina. Welcome, North Carolina. Welcome, North Carolina. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our young lady who is a member of our team. She is the Outreach and Communication Director of Parents for Educational Freedom of North Carolina. She holds a BA in Communications Public Relations from North Carolina Central University. We are fortunate to have her on our team, working to increase, broaden, and intensify the support for Parents for Educational Freedom. Without further ado, if you will, please give a round of applause for Ms. Kelly Smoke.
Good evening. Merriam-Webster's dictionary says that a champion is a warrior, a fighter, a militant advocate or defender, one that does battle for another's rights or honor. My mom has been all these things and more in my life. My mother grew up the third of 9 children in rural Moore County. She has a high school education and was a single parent. What you may view as shortcomings were her strengths. Because my mother raised me by herself, she was very doggedly determined to be both mother and father. She was both nurturing and stern. She praised and disciplined me. She never wanted me to have less than others, and so she worked 2 or 3 jobs, working 7 days a week for months at a time. However, I had most of what I wanted and everything I needed. It was on one of her part-time jobs that she met someone who would change my life. Because my mom was working a part-time job in the evening, she had to take me with her to work. We already had an understanding that I would sit somewhere quietly and do my homework, and then afterwards I could read for pleasure. Well, this caught the attention of one of my mom's co-workers who was a full-time teacher at a local private school. This co-worker told my mom that she should check into getting me into Durham Academy. We had never heard of Durham Academy before. However, my mom didn't let grass grow under her feet. She began the application process, which was very rigorous. I had to take an admissions test on a Saturday morning. We found out weeks later that I had passed the admissions test. However, there was not room for me there at Durham Academy in the 3rd grade, so I returned to public school yet another year. Fortunately, my mom didn't take no for an answer. She began the application process all over again, and again I had to take an admissions test, and again I passed it. This time there would be room for me at Durham Academy. I was one of only 3 new students admitted into the 4th grade that year. I would love to tell you that this was an easy adjustment, but it wasn't. While it took me years to adjust to the new environment, both socially and academically, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Socially, things got better when I began to participate in extracurricular activities such as basketball and track and field. I excelled in both sports and was recruited to play in both in college. As my brother says, everybody loves a winner. I went on to graduate from Durham Academy with a real sense of accomplishment, pride in what I had been able to achieve, and went on to NC State on a track and field scholarship. I stand here tonight, a product of school choice. I share my story tonight because I want to highlight my mother, who did what all of you have showed up to do tonight, and that's to be an advocate for your child. No doubt there are many more Kellys out there raised in a single-parent home whose parent is doing all they can and the best they can with what little they have. My mother was one of the fortunate ones by me receiving a scholarship to attend Durham Academy. My prayer and my hope is that one day this state will allow other families like mine who are not so fortunate to experience what many wealthy families experience and exercise every day in North Carolina: true parental school choice. And at this time, I would like to introduce Friendship Christian School Ensemble from Raleigh, North Carolina, as they sing our Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, above splashing in air, came through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening. My name is Linda Reich. All of you have exercised the freedom of choice this evening. You had the option, and you took the opportunity to be here. Being given a choice is a wonderful thing. I'm the mother of 3 children, and my husband and I have educated our children in various ways throughout the years. And as it is in most families, it is in ours. All of our children are very unique. And because this is true, they all have diverse and individual needs, which are as multifaceted as they are. What about your children? Who knows better than you what academic arena will cultivate an environment which will enable your children to flourish? Because we believe this is true, Parents for Educational Freedom in North Carolina is committed to inform and empower each and every parent. My husband and I have 2 children, 2 in public school, and our third we have chosen to educate in a private school situation. I've heard the misinformation that school choice may reflect negatively on public schools. Well, I'm here to tell you that if that were the case, I would not be up here. You see, I believe in the public school system, or my children would not be in it. Now, could there be room for improvement in both the public and private school sector? Sure, there is anywhere. But while ongoing evaluation and improvement in each educational system is important, your children are more important than any system. So whether it is a public school environment, a private school environment, or a homeschool situation, you, the parent, should have the opportunity to choose which environment is best for your children. Upholding our Constitution, we are to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, our children, and to ensure dignity and opportunity for all people. My husband and I have had a choice as to what education best fits the needs of our children, and for that, we are grateful. But tonight, I'm here for each and every one of you. You see, I don't believe any parent should feel powerless, helpless, or stuck when it comes to the interest of your children. I feel so strongly about this that I came on board with Daryl, the Board of Education here for Educational Freedom of North Carolina, and many other committed individuals to push forward so that every parent will be able to experience the joys and the satisfaction of knowing that they had a choice in their child's education. There are presently 11 states which have been frontrunners because they understood the essential and positive benefits of offering parents educational choice. Let's take this journey together and make North Carolina the 12th. Please sign up tonight or log on the web. Parents for Educational Freedom. Pass it on, because this is good news. It's good news for you, and it's good news for your children, and it's good news for the state of North Carolina.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Petrick, and this is my wife, Leslie Petrick, and we're here to tell you about our son, Brandon, who is 5 years old. Brandon has a severe speech and language disorder, and currently at the age of 5 only has one word, which is mama. Because of Brandon's disability, he requires a highly structured educational environment that is not too overwhelming due to his inability to process sensory information like you and me. If his environment becomes too overwhelming, for example, a lot of noise or activity going on in the classroom, Brandon shuts down and is unable to focus on his work and therefore unable to learn. He is currently in a classroom with 23 other typical children, a setting which he has regressed. Brandon's primary form of communication is sign language, but none of the teachers in his school or his one-on-one aide know any sign language at all, and are therefore unable to help him expand his ability to communicate with others, which prevents him from communicating what he does know. Currently, he is not receiving an education in the public school setting he is in.
School choice would give our son the opportunity to attend a local school that is designed specifically for children with communication disorders. It would provide a classroom with 4 to 6 children and the one-on-one attention our son requires in order to learn. Our son's able to learn. He has average intelligence level. So for him, it's crucial that he be taught in an environment that specializes in his disability. The public school system cannot be all things to all people. Many children belong in and benefit from public education. But if you happen to have a child that doesn't fit that mold, that requires an adapted learning environment in order to get them the educational setting they need, you have to pay twice, through your taxes and through tuition. Laws such as IDEA 2004 and No Child Left Behind do not necessarily get special needs children what they need. As we have experienced firsthand, trying to advocate for your child in the school system is exhausting and frequently unsuccessful. Our child is already at a great disadvantage due to his disabilities and the learning challenges that come along with them. We know our child better than any educator or professional, and should have the option to place him in a setting that we know will provide an appropriate academic and social environment. We should have the option to place him somewhere in which he will be able to meet his full educational potential. As parents, that's all we want for our child's education. Whether our child is a typical learner or has challenges, we just want the opportunity for our children to be appropriately educated. School choice provides that opportunity for every child.
Since 2003, I have also served on the board of Children's Scholarship Fund in Charlotte, North Carolina. This charity raises private money to assist lower-income families paying tuitions for schools of their choice. When the scholarship money became available in 1996, there were over 6,000 families requesting these scholarships in Mecklenburg County only. Currently, the scholarship provider organization works with 70 different schools and financially assists over 400 children. I have seen this firsthand, and I know that empowering families is going to be great in this state. However, many families ask for help, and there is not enough money available. This puts families in waiting lists and makes families feel hopeless, helpless, and trapped in schools not meeting their children's needs. This must change, and with your help, we can accomplish that tonight. Parents for Educational Freedom leads the way for a change. Tonight, it is my honor to introduce our leader and president, Mr. Daryl Allison. Mr. Allison's resume is impressive, and he's a graduate of North Carolina Chapel Hill School of Law, and he graduated magna cum laude from the North Carolina Central University. He has an extensive experience working with nonprofits, but more importantly, in building broad-based coalitions. He's passionate about the vision for parents in education in North Carolina. Believing that each child is unique, parents must be free to choose an education provider that better meets their children's needs. He is a husband and he's a father. He understands the responsibilities that families face in educating their children. He also understands the frustration families who want more educational options for their children than what government currently provides. He works tirelessly, traveling our state, listening to families who want a change, want a better future, and want a parental choice. understands this task is not going to be easy. It's not for the faint of heart, but it must be accomplished. Daryl Allison has accepted this challenge. It is a time for a change. It is a time for action. And it is a time for parental choice in education in North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Daryl Allison.
And right now, I just want to quickly recognize our board. To the left here, we have Mr. Harry Arberly from Raleigh, North Carolina. And of course, you know Cecilia Ramirez all the way. She drove all the way from South Charlotte all the way here from South Charlotte, North Carolina. We have to the right here, distinguished gentleman, John Bryson, our treasurer. And of course, you heard from Linda Reich earlier, also from Charlotte, and a new board member. We're so excited to have her. And then our dynamic, powerful chair lady, Renee Jones from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Well, how's everyone doing tonight? But with a crowd like this, got to ask you, who's playing basketball here? What game is going on tonight? With a crowd of this size, it's got to be a basketball game happening tonight. All right. Crowd this size, there's got to be a concert, a musical of some sort, right? So you mean to tell me that we got people who will pack the gymnasium in the name of education and for children? You mean to tell me that we have people traveling as far as to Charlotte, Rocky Mount, Greenville, North Carolina, and Person County on a Tuesday night, evening after a long day of work, with children in tow, fighting through the rush hour traffic? You're here. Give yourself a hand. That's saying something. And there are many that believe that parents and our citizens don't care about the quality of education that our children are receiving here in North Carolina. Last reported, for those that registered, we have folks, we have individuals, yourselves, we have folks from about 20 different counties under this roof tonight. And why is that? Well, I believe that perhaps all of you have embraced the idea that every child is unique and that parents should be free to choose an education that best meets the needs of their children. What you see here tonight is really miraculous. And by the way, speaking of miraculous, I'd like to acknowledge our clergy. Without their support, week in, week out, putting the charge, setting the standard, encouraging their members, encouraging their community to get involved and be behind this, we wouldn't have this kind of impact and kind of results. Could you all stand? Our clergy, could you all stand? Clergy across, could you all stand? Thank you. But as I said, this is truly miraculous. Parents for Educational Freedom in North Carolina is not some enormous statewide organization with offices in 10 or more cities, with a huge media budget, expert consultants. No, if truth be told, this work has been done by a resilient and active board, and basically staff about 1.5 persons working out of their car and working out of their homes. What we see here tonight is truly a miraculous thing, because there's no way we could have personally come out to touch and reach every one of you. Not enough manpower. To do such, it's overwhelming, especially with the kind of supporter base that we have here. We have, in a short period of time, over 2,500 folks that have actively signed on to become a part of Parents for Educational Freedom in North Carolina in a short period of time. Now let me tell you something even more staggering. We thought that we would have close to, perhaps, wishfully, 350 people here tonight. Because despite our being the little engine that could, thousands have responded to the message tonight. A message that connects with most of you and hundreds, thousands of others throughout the state. And that message fundamentally is freedom. Freedom to help steer the life of our children in the right way. Freedom to be able to give them all the tools necessary to succeed in society. And yes, freedom for parents to choose the education that best meets the needs of their children. I mean, look among you tonight. There are many of you who believe the message of freedom. Among you, we have black, white, Latino, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. This is who Parents for Educational Freedom in North Carolina, this is your organization. We are reflective of you, and we move forward. We have the momentum because of people and individuals like yourselves. Now, speaking of diversity and a broad base of support, we're so fortunate to have with us today members from our North Carolina General Assembly. Will our members please stand? Both Republican, Democrat, state representatives and senators, members that accept our invitation, and we're so happy that you came out tonight. And at this moment, I especially want to publicly acknowledge the work of a few legislators. I want to highlight them that have, regardless of their party affiliation, have decided to work together, again, Democrat and Republican, to help parents like Leslie and Trevor, parents with children with special needs. These public leaders are working on a bill that will seek to provide tax credits for children with special needs. It's Bill H388. Would Reverend Marvin Lucas please stand? Let me tell you something. This powerful man right here is a friend. He's co-chair of the Education Committee. Representative Laurie Wiley, will you please stand? Also Education. Representative Paul Stan, will you please stand? Representative Rick Glazier could not be here tonight, but these four individuals have taken on the charge, and they believe like we do, that not all things are political. Our children and their education should not be used as political tools. And I wanted to publicly thank you for your working together in a bipartisan effort. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are in Southeast Raleigh, and I would be remiss if I didn't have our speaker stand here. This is y'all speaker, Upper Room Christian Academy. Speaker Dan Blue, would you see the stand? Over speaker. I also would like to publicly acknowledge leaders that have been on the forefront for a very long time, doing a great work, which mostly goes unnoticed among the masses because their efforts are cloaked under the private, non-public label. but many of you that are here know of them and the great work that they do on behalf of thousands and thousands of others each year in North Carolina. Dr. Michael Fedewa. Dr. Michael Fedewa is superintendent of Catholic schools of the entire eastern region of our state. Dr. Linda Cherry, please keep standing, please. Dr. Linda Cherry is superintendent of Catholic schools in the entire western region of North Carolina. Dr. Joe Hass, executive director of North Carolina Christian School Association. Hal and Melinda Young could not be here today, but they're with the North Carolinians for Home Education. Thomas Taft, Government Affairs for North Carolina Association of Independent Schools. Now let me tell you something. They serve over close to 93,000 children across the state privately. And if you include homeschoolers, that number creeps up to 158,000 children each year. Thank you. Thank you. Now, 158,000 children sounds like a lot, but there are so many more families across the state that would love to have at least an option, just the option of sending their child to a private school, where a public school may not fully meet the needs of their child. They would just like that option. They may choose public school, but they just like to have the option. Friends, and I'll close with this, as I've always said, if parental school choice is good enough for the families of Florida, if it's good enough for the families of Utah, if it's good enough for the families of Vermont, Ohio, Arizona, Iowa, Washington, D.C., Illinois, Maine, Minnesota, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, and even the city of Milwaukee, surely school choice is good enough for the families of North Carolina. And together we can do it. At this time, we have a special treat. We have a young man who's going to introduce our speaker. And he comes from Durham Nativity School. The mission of Durham Nativity School is based on the highly successful model to help break the cycle of poverty through a quality middle school education that will help empower each child to reach their full potential. Durham Nativity School is accomplishing this goal through an extended day, year-round program that prepares its students for the rigors of a college preparatory high school curriculum. With the aid of visionary board of directors, dedicated faculty and staff, committed parents, and a host of community leaders, students are nurtured in a 3-year program that provides emotional, social, moral, and intellectual support in a small class setting. Let me tell you, I had the opportunity to visit this school. Dynamic, at-risk youth is what they focus on with ability. It's phenomenal work. Durham Nativity School is hard at work to establish itself as an institution that accomplishes the goals set forth in the school's motto, and that is educating tomorrow's community leaders. Well, here's a tomorrow's leader. Mr. Wesley Murray is a 6th grader from Durham Nativity School, and he's here to introduce our speaker. Will you please give him an applause?
Dr. Howard Fuller's career included many years in both public service positions and the field of education. Dr. Fuller is a distinguished professor of education and founder director of the Institute for Transformation of Learning at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The organization began operation in August of 1995. The mission of the Institute is to support exemplary education options that transform learning for children, while empowering families, partially low income families, to choose the best options for their children. Immediately before his appointment at Marquette University, Dr. Fuller served as the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools. During his tenure as superintendent, Dr. Fuller became nationally known for his unending support for fundamental education reform.
That's extremely hard to do. I want to begin tonight by, first of all, thanking God for giving me this opportunity to be here with you tonight. I want to thank Renee and all of the board members of Parents for Educational Freedom in North Carolina. And I want to thank my brother Darrell for his hard work and his leadership. And I want to thank all of the clergy who are here and all of the legislators who are here. But I want to thank Pastor Wu because I want him to know that he's like following the path of the ministers who had courage. Because this fight, and it is going to be a fight, this fight going to take courage. And so we got to have people who are not scared. And then I want to thank each and every one of you all for being here because you could be somewhere else. And so I thank you for being here. It is always a good thing for me to come back to North Carolina, because there are some people here who know that in my younger days, I spent 10 years in this state. And usually when I come back, it's a great thing, but a couple months ago I came back, and it was a sad thing because I came to speak at the funeral of one of my closest friends, Ben Ruffin. And there's a lot of you young people in here who don't know Ben, but you will benefit because of Ben's work. And I am thinking about him as I speak to you tonight. Why am I here? I'm here because I believe that our children are our most precious resource. And I believe that it is our responsibility with God's guidance to love them, to nurture them, to care for them, and to ensure that every single one of them is educated. And last month was Black History Month. I done had a problem with that for as long as I could remember, trying to figure out how come we just got a month. And people say, don't be so mad, Howard, it used to be a week. But that's another speech. And once again, when you have Black History Month, they drag out all of the black pictures. And then they play over and over again the I Have a Dream speech. And no one can argue with the power of that speech. But I think there's a whole generation of young people who think that Martin Luther King was a dreamer. He was not a dreamer. He was a man of action. He was a man who put his body on the line and ultimately died for his people. But in this speech, he talked about how he would envision a day when black people could experience the reality of the words that were contained in the black spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, I am free at last. And I always wonder, some of the people who now get all misty-eyed when they hear that speech, I wonder if they really understand what Martin Luther King Jr. believed about freedom. Martin Luther King said that freedom is first the capacity to deliberate or weigh alternatives. Shall I be a teacher? Shall I be a doctor? And then second, freedom expresses itself in decision. And when I make a decision, I cut off alternatives and I make a choice. And then third, freedom is to accept responsibility for the decisions that you make. And so the one thing we have to teach our young people is you're going to have to take the weight for the decisions that you make. But I would suggest that in the real side, that the ability of a person to be free in its truest sense in this country is dependent upon your being able to attain a level of relative economic independence. And economic independence is not possible without a source of income. And for most of us, that means a decent job, and a decent job is impossible without an education. And so we got to tell our young people that if you get an education, it guarantees you nothing. But I will guarantee you, you will have nothing if you do not get an education. But an education is about more than just preparing people for jobs. An education is about preparing people to be socially and economically productive. An education is about giving you the capacity to engage in the practice of freedom. But unfortunately, for too many of our poorest children, a disproportionate number of whom are children of color, will never be able to realize freedom because our systems of education do not work for them. And far too many of them are not being prepared to participate in the mainstream of American society. And the truth is, this is no longer an issue about just America, because our young people must more than ever before compete in a world that Thomas Friedman said is flat. And what does that mean? What this means is you get on the cell phone and you're trying to get some help. And the dude answers the phone and say, "This is Bill." And you think you're talking to Bill from Des Moines. But who you really talking about to is a dude named Rajiv who's in Bangalore, India. There's 245,000 Indians answering phones, and you think you're talking to Bill. Because the world has changed. And you got these people who get up, come speak to some black people. First thing they say is, it takes a whole village to educate a child. I'm tired of that. And I'm tired of people who ain't never been nowhere near the village. Don't even know where the village is. Talking about it takes a whole village. So let me give you another African parable that comes out of Friedman's book, and it goes like this. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle gets up. And the gazelle knows that if it can't run faster than the fastest lion, it's going to get killed. Every morning a lion gets up. knowing that if it can't run faster than the slowest gazelle, it's going to starve. Either way, when the sun comes up, they both start running. And what we got to understand is that every day, young people all over the world get up and they start running. And these young people in the rest of the world is running faster than even our smartest young people. So if they running faster than our smartest young people, what chance do our children have who can't read, write, think, compute, and analyze? In a book I read, another book called From Good to Great by Jim Collins, he talked about a thing called a Stockdale paradox. And what that is there was a man named Stockdale. He actually ran on the ticket with parole years ago, but he was a prisoner of war. And they asked him, how was it that you were able to survive when many of your comrades could not? And he said, you know why? Because they kept saying, I'm going to get out of this at Thanksgiving. I'm going to get out at Christmas. He said, I faced the brutal facts, but I knew that I had to deal with reality, but I faced these facts with an undying belief that I could overcome. And what we have to do in this room tonight is we got to face the brutal facts of our condition. Because if you keep living in a world of illusions, you will never be free. And so you got to deal, Chris Rock said, that you got to keep it real. And so you got to deal with what's real. And what is real? What's real is that as much as we love all of these kids in here, the statistics say if we line all of them up on the wall, that less than 50% of them will graduate from high school. See, we love our kids, but we don't love them enough. And so, think about it. Look at the data. And there's this test, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which shows that African American 9-year-olds have closed the achievement gap with their white peers, but they still are 26 points behind in reading, 23 points behind in math. For 13-year-olds, the black-white achievement gap in math is 27 points and 22 in reading. The reality is that African American and Latino 17-year-old young people read and do math on average at the same level as 13-year-old white kids. You know what? I want you to think about this. Think about the irony of what I'm getting ready to say. On February 1st, 1960, 4 students from A&T sat down at a lunch counter and demanded to be served. Here we are in 2007. You can go sit down at the lunch counter and they want to serve you, but our kids can't read the menu. How did this happen? And people always ask me when I come to speak, Howard, why are you such an angry Negro? You know, why are you so mad? You know what I'm mad about? I'm mad about this data but I'm even madder about the fact that we allowed it to happen. And you see, I don't believe that the inability of so many of our children to learn is because we don't know what to do. I agree with Ron Edmonds. He said we can, whenever and wherever we choose, educate all children whose schooling is of interest to us. We already know more than we need to know to accomplish the task. Whether or not we do it must finally depend upon how we feel about the fact that we have not done it so far. Langston Hughes asked the question, didn't he? He said, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? So many of our kids' dreams are not just being deferred, they're being destroyed. They're being destroyed by school systems that don't believe in them or their dreams. They're being destroyed. They're being destroyed. It's not possible, is it, that in 2007, we still have people telling our kids, my check gonna come whether you learn or not. It's not possible. In 2007, we have teachers telling our kids that I got mine, you got to get yours. It ain't possible, is it? I want to tell you all that I believe that our educational systems today are essentially organized to protect the people who work in them, not the families that they're supposed to be serving. And that we're going to have to do a whole lot more than just get a new curriculum. Those of you in this room tonight, if you believe in freedom and you believe in your kids, you got to adopt a revolutionary posture. That you got to begin to think about radical change. Just messing around at the edges, with all due respect, that ain't going to get it. And I want to be real clear. I am not saying that we don't have educators, and some of you all in this room who do heroic jobs every day with our children. But the fact of the matter is, you are working in a system that is dysfunctional. And so no matter how hard you work, you will never be able to realize what you truly know has to happen, because the system wasn't set up to educate our children. We have to face the brutal facts of our reality. So I'm here because I think we got to have a totally different system, a totally different finance system, government system. I think we got to have a system that allows dollars to follow students, that holds adults accountable for what happens to kids. The only people who are held accountable today when our kids don't learn are our kids. People get raises, and our kids not learning zip. And so, I'm going to tell you, I'm for everything. I'm for charter schools. I'm for new configurations of the traditional system. I'm for virtual schools. I'm for public-private partnerships. I'm for using technology in creative ways. You know what's really so I mean, a lot of us gotta, this right here is this is the greatest invention in humankind. And a lot of people are like, what is that? Well, this is an iPod. And I'm a DJ, so I got 8,000 songs on here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I got Ray Charles on here, you know, and I'm going to talk about the music in a minute because y'all always dissing these young people. I'm going to talk about your music in a minute. But if you think about it, our kids are operating at the speed of light, and we dealing with them in slow motion. I mean, we got to start thinking not only about the type of policies we have, but we got to start thinking about the way that we even think about learning. You know what I'm saying? People just say, well, why do you think there's such a problem? I'm saying, like, you got kids with a hip-hop mentality, and we coming at them with an R&B, coming at them with an R&B approach, or maybe even a waltz, which is worse, you know, trying to connect up with these kids. I read this article that talked about digital immigrants and digital natives, and a lot of us, you know, people like me, we like digital immigrants. What is a digital immigrant? Digital immigrant, you like find a cool website somewhere and you call everybody in your office to come see the website instead of just sending them the URL. You know what I'm saying? You get a document you're supposed to, like, you know, change it. What do you do? What do? We print it first. Then we scratch it out on the paper. Then we go back in and correct it. Digital immigrants, they call people and say, did you get my email? You know, our kids are like digital natives. I mean, they like operating at the speed of light. I mean, it's like if you ever get into BET or, you know, like, and you see Beyonce, I mean, I was like seeing her, and oh my God, I wanted to like, put the pause on because she made the move so fast that I couldn't even see it. Our kids are looking at it all the time. I decided I could not be in this world without learning how to use the PlayStation 2. So I went out and got one. And my little friend who calls me Uncle Howard, he came over. It was the most humbling experience I've ever had to have a 9-year-old just destroy you. And he was saying, you know, he said, Uncle Howard, you gotta move faster. I knew what I was supposed to be doing. I just couldn't get there. And so I'm trying to get us to understand that we got to approach learning differently. We've got to rethink this whole thing. But as we think about all of these things, I want to be clear that the one thing that has to be in place is parental choice. And I want to explain what I mean by that, because you know, now y'all got to understand, it's all cool up in here tonight, but there's a lot of people in the state of North Carolina who ain't feeling what we in here talking about tonight. And so if you one of these people who like don't like controversy, you like in the wrong room. Because what we're talking about is very controversial, but it has to be. Because when you're talking about changing power, it has to be controversial. That's the way it is. And so what I'm trying to get you to see is, I'm here tonight because I'm saying very clearly that the issue in this country is not parental choice. It's who has it. Because if you got money in America, you got choice. Every one of us in here knows that if you got money and school's not working for your kids, you either gonna move to a community where they do work, or you gonna put your kid in a private school. The only people who are trapped in schools that don't work for their kids are poor and working class people who can't move and don't have the money to put them in private school. Think about the hypocrisy in America. You got teachers teaching in schools they would never put their own children in. Demanding that your kids stay there. You got legislators who talking about why they can't give you choice. Ask them where their kids go to school. I mean, we got to face brutal facts. Because if you don't face facts, you can't fight. And this is a fight. I want you all to understand very clearly, this is a fight. It's a fight because to talk about choice is to change who controls the flow and distribution of the money. And just for a minute, I want to talk to you crazy parents in here. I give speeches all over the country, and I ask people, how many crazy parents in here? People raise their hand, and I ain't even defined what it is. You know, them crazy parents instinctively know who I'm talking to. Yeah, the crazy parents are the ones who got the audacity to go up to the school. You're the ones that when they see you coming, they try to board up the doors. They put webbing on the air conditioning vents because they don't want you in the school other than to bake cookies. But I'm going to tell you something. In America, if when you went up to the school, if the people knew at the school that if they didn't treat your children right, you were going to take your children. And when the children left, the money left, there'll be a different discussion about your child. So y'all got to send a message out of this room tonight that what has happened in the midst of North Carolina, there's a whole movement that is just growing up, and you all represent the vanguard of that movement. And what you've got to say loud and clear, it is no longer acceptable for my child not to be educated, and I have no other place and no way to get them out of there. That is un-American. That is not acceptable in America. So I'm going to be done in a minute, but I just want you all to understand, I've been talking about schools. Let me switch over for a minute. Because we do have to change schools, and we do have to change school systems, but we also have to focus on the reality of the impact on our children's lives of the existence of differential access to power and resources in our society based on race and based on class. You got to talk about race and you got to talk about class. Because children who are hungry cannot learn. Children who are abused and neglected are not going to be able to concentrate in school. Children need to see people in their immediate families working in order to understand the value of work and the connection between education and work. Children have to see a society where their race will not be an impediment to advancement and respect. And I want to be real clear, because people getting a little shaky these days about talking about race. Well, I'm going to talk about it. If you black, brown in America, it makes a difference. You understand what I'm saying? It makes a difference. And I have, I teach a class, taught it last night on civil rights and education. And we were dealing with this race thing. And I said, when I was in school, I was playing ball, and I was the only black person in the school. I integrated a college. And I actually did. And one of my friends came up to me and gave me what he perceived to be a phenomenal compliment. He said to me, Howard, when I see you, I don't see a black person. Scared the H out of me. I was like, you're like, what do you see? You know what I'm saying? But what I really understood, and what I told him was, to deal with me, you don't have to neuter me. I'm black. The issue is not that I'm black. The issue is, what difference does it make to you? And see, people say they want a colorless society. First of all, it ain't gonna happen. Second of all, what would that be? You understand what I'm saying? And one of my students last night said, well, I'm for the melting pot. I said, no, I'm for the stew, because I want to see all the ingredients in the pot. I don't want it all mixed up so you can't see none of the ingredients. I want to see the onions. I want to see the potatoes, because really, the strength of it is the diversity. So race matters, but class matters. The only people in America that tell you that money don't matter got money. Ain't no poor people rolling around America talking about how cool it is to be broke. Talking about money ain't important. That's one of them cocktail after you done drunk party discussions up on the 40th floor somewhere. It ain't real down here on the ground. So we have to fight for our children, not only in school, but we have to fight for them before they ever get to school. Because what happens to them before they get to school impacts. And this is where we have to get into some family discussion. I'm talking about inside the black people discussion. See, because a lot of stuff that's happening to our kids is because of what we are doing or not doing with our own kids. I see, it's all good to come to a meeting and stuff, but if you don't never hug your child, if you don't never try to help your child, if you don't never ask your child, do y'all have any work to do? If you don't never stand up for your child, how can you be around here talking about somebody else, what they ain't doing, and you're not doing the most basic thing that you could do for your child? And I'm gonna tell you the truth. We got kids out here running wild because nobody is taking the time to say, this is right and this is wrong. Now, I chair the board of a small Christian high school in Milwaukee. Got 170 kids. Only reason we got to school because we got a low-income voucher that brought all the kids to our school. We begin our school every day with praise and worship. We don't have to ask nobody. But you know what? But you know what's good about it is that when our kids leave us at 3:30, 4, some of them don't leave there till 5:30 or 6. They go out into an environment that when they come back the next day, you got to interrupt what happened between the time that you had them and the time that they went out there and the time that they came back. We decided that praise and worship was the interruption that they needed. But you don't. It could be something else. But it has to be something that understands our kids. So we got a fight ahead of us. And we're fighting for parental choice. We're fighting to say that every parent ought to have the capacity to choose the best educational environment for their children. We're fighting to say there should not be in America where only those of us with money will have the power to choose. And because we fight, we have to remember these words. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. And those of us who profess to favor freedom, but yet deprecate agitation, are people who want the crops without plowing up the ground. We want the rain without the thunder and the lightning. We want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. And this struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both a moral and a physical one, but it must be a struggle. Because power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. And people may not get all that they pay for in this world, but they most certainly must pay for all that they get. Show me the exact amount of wrongs and injustices that are visited upon a people, and I will show you the exact amount of wrongs and injustices that are endured by these people. And these wrongs and injustices must be fought with words or with blows or with both, because the limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. So said Frederick Douglass. Thank you very much.
I came tonight because I've been following bits and pieces of what's been happening with schools and activity in schools all over the state. I was a legislative chairperson at PTA. I was actually legislative chairman for the entire Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. And during that time, began to see the bigger picture of what was going on in the school system, and seeing that there need to be changes, need to be options, and kids were missing out on the opportunities they could get. So this has been great to watch this evolve. What Dr. Fuller was saying about adopting a revolutionary attitude, it's an attitude. We're not picking up guns, we're not taking anybody by storm. All we're saying is that the future is for change, for opportunities, for everybody, for every little child that needs an opportunity. We're gonna work every way we can, day and night, to make sure every child gets an opportunity for the best education they can get.
The only way that we're going to be able to reach those who are falling through the cracks, and many are, is for North Carolina to have educational freedom, choice. As a matter of fact, it's not just a state issue, it's a nationwide issue, which was pointed out tonight, and I've been aware quite some time that our system is causing even the best and the brightest of American students to fall behind globally. I think that what was mentioned tonight, what was highlighted, is the fact that if the money follows the child, it gives incentive for each school, whether it is a public school or private, to work harder to educate the child. It gives us incentive to do our job.
I'm very impressed with the importance of this issue. I think every parent has a right to send his child to a school that's going to meet that child's needs as that parent sees it, not as a bureaucrat decides.
Do you think that we'll be able to make a change to the system?
Looking at the crowd that was out here tonight, and if this is like, one of the more diverse crowds I've ever seen and one of the most enthusiastic I've ever seen, with the leadership you've got, I absolutely believe there's going to be a change. As long as they can be heard here, I think they'll hear them up on Jones Street.
Well, I came as a concerned parent. I have a kid that's still in the public school system, a freshman at Wakefield High, and not just for my kids, but the generations to come. And again, as I said earlier, the system is outdated. We have to make changes if we're going to change the direction that we're headed. And so being here to rally behind this is a good cause, and I believe in it. Dr. Fuller and Brother Darrell Allison, Dr. Fuller put together a presentation that was wonderful, very informative. It gives you insight of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the money to follow the kids, which is a better system because the present system is outdated, and we have to make changes. We're losing too many of our kids, and like Dr. Fuller said, if you stood up 50% of our kids that was in the room, over half of them won't graduate, so we've got to make some changes.
I think you heard a good speech tonight about the true issues. You got to move the establishment. That's never done easily, and it's not going to be done with this group here. It's going to take a much larger, more motivated, and actually people who are physically involved. But I think you've started, and I think we're going to do something. The system's wrong. That's one of the reasons. The system's wrong. And when things are wrong, people come together to change it if they care, and I care, and you care, and the people in this room care. But we're not enough. We're a seed. Maybe a little better than mustard seed, but we're a seed.
Yes, sir. I came because I wanted to learn more about the organization. I wanted to know more what it stood for, to get an understanding how it operates, and basically just for the information so that I'll be able to share it with others and take it out to the community. I was very pleased. I already work in civil rights, so I was very pleased with what I heard. And like I said, it's very important that we, for us as African Americans, to be educated, especially our young people, because we're already at a disadvantage. And it's just very important. Education is the key, and we need to have the opportunity of choice, just like the people who put their kids in private schools.